everyone. Welcome to First Things First. My name is Jenna Wolf. His name is Hall of Famer Chris Carter. His name is Nick Wright. We made it to midway point of the week, and for that, we get an NBA Finals game tonight.
Thank goodness.
Lucky us.
Let's get a good game.
You got something to do tonight.
Maybe a good series.
Tonight determines if we're going to have a series.
Exactly right.
Must win for the
100%.
Cavs?
Oh, absolutely.
Oh,
Okay.
no, must win for America.
As much as we need oxygen.
More basketball.
Yeah, to have more basketball. And to make me not feel like a fool for booking a flight to Cleveland for Game 4. Going to a city to see a team down 3-0 feels very different than a 2-1 series.
And how many teams have come back from down 0-3?
Zero in NBA history.
Okay.
So,
all right.
yeah.
This could be the year.
The people in Ohio like you, though, bro.
That is true. At least for another 4 weeks.
He's
we'll
not-
see if LeBron
The only
leaves
time
out.
I've seen you in Ohio is with me, so it's like the people in Ohio like you with me.
Oh,
How they do that?
There is basketball to stay up for tonight. Game 3, the NBA Finals from Cleveland, as discussed. Cavs trailing 0-2 in the series, as discussed, but they know they will get a boost tonight in front of that home crowd. They also know this series could easily have been tied if not for some crucial mistakes, gaffes, bad play, and some questionable calls. But just those things, like nothing else. None of that, though, makes LeBron feel any better. Take a listen.
I know it feels like we're down 2-0, and I don't like the way I feel. I don't like the way, the mood that I'm in right now. Knowing whatever, there's no like, okay, you're down 2-0 and you feel better than you're down 2-0 before. It's just, when you're down like this in a deficit like this versus a team like this, there's no good feeling. So I personally don't feel good today of the deficit that we have. Not about tomorrow. I feel great about our opportunity.
That's the LeBron James we wanted on the bench the other night after regulation. Don't say it. What do the Cavs need to do, CC, to win Game 3 tonight? If they're going to pull this one out and keep this series alive, what do they have to do?
Oh, well, I'm going to go first to the guy who was speaking. That was LeBron James. And people, not just from a production standpoint, what numbers does LeBron, but he's got to be able to make some outside shots. If he's able to shoot the ball outside the lane, because I know he can get to the lane, but it's going to be not as easy as it was in game number 1. You could see from the defensive game plan, game number 2, what they were going to do with LeBron as far as pressuring him in the backcourt. I would also have George Hill and some of the other players for the Cavs bring the ball up the court. So LeBron doesn't have to worry about that. So I would alleviate that part of it, especially early in the game. Now, once we get into the third and fourth quarter, I might go back to the game plan that I had in game number 1. That would be my counter move to what Golden State and Steve Kerr, where they loaded up the defense to LeBron. They weren't going to let him. They were trapping him once he passed half court to get the ball out of his hand. So those are the things. LeBron's got to be able to shoot the ball from downtown. How many threes does LeBron make? And how many field goals does LeBron make outside of the lane? Those are things I'm going to look at in the stat sheet after tonight's game, because I believe if he's able to get his jump shot going, it will open up things for the other Cavs, the role players, which has been the story of the Cavs season. But it starts with LeBron. It starts with his jump shot, and it starts with moving him off of the ball, especially bringing the ball up the court so we can preserve some of the energy that he's going to need in the third and fourth quarter.
To your point about LeBron and getting in the lane, scoring in the paint, Game 1 and Game 2, he was very consistent at. Game 1, he was 9 of 10 in the restricted area. Game 2, he was 8 of 9. So what's the difference between 50 points and 29 points? Well, in Game 1, he hit a bunch of jump shots. He hit a bunch of three-pointers. Game 2, that was not the case. So I think that's a key point. Is his jump shot falling? Is it not falling? From a team perspective, the Cavs in the last 2 NBA Finals prior to this one, the year they won the championship in 7 and the year they lost last year against Kevin Durant and the Warriors in 5, they've beaten the Warriors 3 times in Cleveland, only 3 times in the 2 finals previous to this. In all 3 of those games, they dominated the first quarter. The Cavs' home victories against the Warriors in the last 2 NBA Finals, they won the first quarter 33-16. They won the first quarter 31-11. And last year, Game 4, they won the first quarter, I had to double-check this, 49-33. They scored 49 points in the first quarter of Game 4 last year. So in their 3 home victories in the last 2 NBA Finals against this team, they have outscored the Warriors 113-60 in the first quarter. Why is that relevant? They have to get off to a fast start. We know the Warriors are going to be doubling LeBron early. That's going to mean other guys have to hit shots. It's going to mean J.R. Smith has to come out looking nothing like he's looked since the Toronto series, essentially, against Boston or in this series. It means those opening plays where you run 3 of your first 5 plays for Kevin Love, those have to be effective. And on the other side, you have to get some stops. You cannot let Kevin Durant get easy buckets. You cannot let Steph Curry get into a rhythm early, because their path to victory at home over the last few years against this team has been kill them in the first quarter and then play them even the rest of the way.
How much does tonight's win matter, or tonight's game matter, and if they get the win for the Cavs?
Oh, man, they matter. I mean, it matters not only from a production standpoint, because the Cavs have to look at a number as far as being able to get to maybe 105 to 110 points. Now, LeBron, man, say if we just give him 40.
Yep.
Oh, it's important. Because they got to get the rest of the team to score 60 to 70 points. I believe the Cavs, and they've shown this, they'll be better defensively at home. They'll run around. They will hustle. They will get the loose ball plays, because this is what happens in series like this. 2-0 at Golden State. When it switches back, you'll see the role players, how much more energy, how much more confidence they play with. But it's paramount that those role players, that they, especially offensively, they have to play well, because you have to get to 105 to 110 points to be in the game with Golden State.
And the Cavs know you can come back from 2-0 down. Like, LeBron in his career has been down 2-0 7 times. He's 3-4 in those 7 series. Now, that might not sound very good, but then I would tell you every team in the history of basketball that's been down 2-0 that doesn't have LeBron is 17 and 277. So LeBron in his career comes...
So what's the percentage of that?
Right, so LeBron in his career comes back from 0-2 down 43% of the time. Every team in NBA history without LeBron does it 6% of the time.
So
they know they can come back from down 0-2.
Not 0-3.
Not 0-3. It's never been done, and there's a reason it's never been done. It's not only because if you're down 0-3, the other team's much better than you, but it's because your margin for error evaporates, and I believe your spirit evaporates. Like, you know this. People act like Kevin Durant won the NBA Finals with that jump shot over LeBron, because he did win the NBA Finals with a jump shot over LeBron last year. Even though the series went 5, that happened in Game 3. That won Game 3, and that won them the series.
And we look at this and we say, well, what could Ty Lue do differently? These are the same cast of characters that he's had, but he is making a couple little tweaks. We'll get into it more, but he is going to look at Rodney Hood to get more playing time.
Yeah, Rodney Hood, Larry Nance Jr., I believe both of them, because both of them bring the ability to be more athletic. Rodney Hood can get his shot off the bounce. He's very good in the pick and roll. Now, they need to, Rodney Hood, you got to do some favors. The same thing you were doing for Kyle Korver, running plays for him, you need to run those for Rodney Hood. You need to give him the same opportunities, because he can score the basketball. Average 16 points with Utah in that Western Conference. He's also, when you're in the Western Conference and you see Golden State, it's totally different than when you're in the Eastern Conference. You only see them twice a year. You get used to seeing them. You get used to their speed. You get used to their shooting ability. So, for me, I thought Rodney Hood should play a significant role in this series. He hadn't yet. Rumors coming out of Cleveland that he will be inserted in game number 3 to get some minutes. So that will be part of the storyline tomorrow, regardless.
And the rotational adjustment, in my eyes, is not just going to be who is inserted into the lineup, but who is removed. I would be very surprised if Jordan Clarkson gets the minutes he's been getting. We've talked ad nauseum. He has the 3rd worst true shooting percentage of any player in playoff history through this playoff run. It took him 120 minutes on the court between assists. Like, he's been a wildly negative force for them. But while we're talking about what the Cavs need to do offensively and where they're going to get points, and Rodney Hood getting points off the bounce, the other thing is this. I know your shots fall better when you're at home versus on the road. They need to have more defensive energy. LeBron James cannot be leading them in deflections and getting to loose balls. That's got to be everybody else's job as well. Like, you've got to have guys out there, if they're not being productive, like JR offensively, like Larry Nance Jr. offensively, to be better defensive players to try to keep the Warriors under 105.
Back to something you mentioned earlier to me, Jenna. It's about opportunity. LeBron talks about he looks forward to the opportunity, but what an opportunity for those role players. Because everything that we've said about them, and I don't mind this, I don't mind being wrong. But my job is not to make the news. My job is to report the news. And those reserve players, that supporting cast, they've been big bad. Those are just facts. Like, it's not like we're hating on them, but tremendous opportunity for the role players. We always know the opportunity is there for LeBron, but a tremendous opportunity that they could change the narrative just in one game.
All right, we are going to talk much more about this. We'll get into it from the other side after this. Will Steph Curry repeat his Game 2 masterpiece in Game 3? Next on First Things First.
At Buffalo Wild Wings, we'll admit that we often go overboard with our limited time offerings. We just can't help ourselves. Take our new signature sampler. For $15, you get wings and 3 shareable options, like fried pickles or cheese curds. Then there's our aptly named over-the-top nachos, a literal mountain of crispy tortilla chips loaded with your choice of pulled pork or honey barbecue chicken, corn, jalapenos, and more. Then top it all off with our new platinum margarita. Go overboard with us today at Buffalo Wild Wings. Wings, beer, sports. Available for a limited time while supplies last. Please drink responsibly.
All right, NBA Finals. Game 3 tips off tonight. Warriors up 2-0 heading to Cleveland. Last year, the Warriors were up 2-0 heading to Cleveland. We know how that turned out. They won the game and eventually the series. If they do it again this year, it would clinch a 3rd title in 4 years for Golden State. The probable Finals MVP, Steph Curry, though, he isn't taking anything for granted.
We understand how hard it is to win in this building. No matter what's going on in the series, when you change venues, you got to reassert your dominance and try to find that right momentum to start. And we have a great opportunity, tomorrow to do that. And I want to be, a part of leading that charge and playing an amazing game tomorrow and really taking control of the series.
All right, guys, what do we expect from Steph Curry tonight? He had a phenomenal 4th quarter of the last game. It wasn't a tremendous whole game, but he had a great way to end Game 2. What are you looking for from Steph Curry tonight?
I want to see if Steph's game in these playoffs is transferable from venue to venue. Because at home, he's giving you 30 a game, 45% from 3 in these playoffs. And on the road, he's giving you 20 a game and 35% from 3. We know he's not a big difference maker defensively. So I think it's fair to say in these playoffs, as great as the Warriors have been, Steph Curry on the road has been a little disappointing. Now, Steph Curry at home is on his way to a Finals MVP, the only thing missing from his resume. So I want to see if his game transfers from venue to venue, and I want to see if Steph Curry is actively trying to build off of the 4th quarter he had, and by that I mean hunting his shots early, or if it's more Warriors offense, ball movement, good shot, great shot, or if Steph wants to see, do I still have the hot hand from 72 hours ago?
I think the Warriors initially, they know how important that 1st quarter is. Nick, you mentioned in the segment before how bad Golden State's been in this building, in particular in that 1st quarter. So for me, I look for Kevin Durant. I look for him and Steph to be more aggressive. But I'm looking for Durant because it's easier for Durant to get his shot. Like, if they want to start the series, they want to start, in Cleveland with some good shots, it's easy. You move the ball, all right? You go for the switches. Kevin Durant gets the matchup that he wants, and you get easy shots that way. I don't want them to play at a pace too fast because on the road, I believe Cleveland, they'll try to get up and down, something they can't do at Golden State. But at home, they will play. They will play with some aggressive defense, and they'll try to get up and down. I want
try to turn Golden State over in order to get up.
And I expect Golden State to try to survive the 1st quarter, get into their half-court offense, get KD matched up on several of the Cavs wherever he wants the ball, and for him to go to work on them. So I know Steph. The logic says game number 2, man, he explodes 5 threes in the 4th. He's going to try to take that over, but I look at it a different way. KD, he knew he wasn't great in game number 1, shot a lot of bad shots, came back very, very surgical-like performance.
KD played almost a perfect basketball game in Game 2.
Yes.
I don't want it to be overlooked. KD was good, not great, but good defensively, and offensively, he did everything you ask a guy to do. 26 points on 14 shots, an effective field goal percentage of 78%. which is, if you don't care about effective field goal percentage, take my word for it. That is an insane number. Added 7 assists, 9 rebounds. KD did everything you could ask someone to do, and he was the reason they had the 10-point lead going into the fourth, which then allowed Steph to explode in the fourth.
So is it more important for KD to start fast, start strong, and have a steady game rather than, you know, hope that Steph Curry's got the hot hand from outside and can just keep going there over and over again?
Jenna, this is the problem. At any time, your house can catch fire. With the collection of shooters they have, that is the mystery to Golden State. Well, what if they start slow? Well, if they start slow, you know what? Clay and Draymond can chip in and get them through the first quarter. But we saw in game number 2, classic Warriors fashion, Steph playing bad basketball. It finishes with an NBA record 9 threes, 5 of them in the fourth. So KD can go off in a quarter. We have seen Clay, playoff Clay, game 6 Clay.
Right.
I mean, go for 30, 25 in a quarter. So that's part of their greatness is, yes, they can start sluggish. They're a team that can afford to do that. The Cavs don't have that luxury, and most other NBA teams don't have the luxury.
But what we also know about this Warriors team is this, that they are two different teams when in games where Steph's their best guy and in games where anyone else is their best guy. In this season, when Steph leads them in scoring, they win 90% of their games. In every other game, the games where Steph doesn't lead them in scoring, they win less than 70% of their games. Now, 68% Games 1 is great for any team except for this team. So it's not like they're bad when Steph doesn't lead them in scoring. But when he does, they're almost unbeatable. But for Steph, here's the thing, and this is where I wonder how much this means to him. I wonder how much he is thinking about this Finals MVP, because it's the only thing missing from his resume. It is the only. What is the difference between Kevin Garnett and Dirk Nowitzki? They both were the best player on a championship team. They both were regular season MVP. They were both one of the best power forwards of their era.
Can I guess?
What?
Finals MVP.
Dirk was a Finals MVP. KG wasn't. What's the difference between David Robinson and Hakeem Olajuwon? They both won 2 titles. They both won a regular season MVP. They were both 2 of the best centers of their era.
Can I guess? Finals MVP.
Finals MVP.
This is such an easy
Why
guess.
is Paul? Why? When we see Paul Pierce and Chauncey Billups on television before the game, do they say NBA champion? Do they say future or Hall of Fame? No. What do they say? Finals MVP from 2004. Finals MVP from 2008. Like, the Finals MVP thing is the one thing missing from Steph's resume.
You think he thinks about that when he takes the court? You think that fuels him to shoot more, get out quicker, start sooner? I mean, does that? How much is he thinking about that?
And you have to be honest with fans. It's hard for things like that not to enter your mind. But the thing about it is, if Steph, how does Golden State win game number 3? They need Steph to play well. That would lead to being MVP. So whatever game plan that they would have as an organization, as Steve Kerr, it's based on Steph being real good. Now, Steph's got 2 games in his back pocket where the other Warriors haven't stood out MVP-wise. So now it's game number 3. The Warriors want to sweep this. So game number 3 becomes important, and Kevin Durant has the ability, too, to get into the conversation, too. So I believe there's always that little competition against yourself. There's always that competition when you're playing against great players. And the reality is, if they do go up 3-0, there is going to be a Warriors MVP potentially after game number 4.
Well, that's the other thing is, like, yes, Durant could get in this conversation, but the way to prevent LeBron from getting into this conversation, even if the Warriors win it, is to win this thing in 4 or 5. If this thing goes 6, certainly if it goes 7, even if the Warriors win it, then all of a sudden LeBron will start to get back into the conversation. And, like, that would be, if I'm Steph Curry, a bitter pill to swallow. So, wait, we win the title in 2015.
Yeah.
I'm our best player. Iggy gets it.
That would be tough for you mentioned Steph, but follow that up with KD. KD, sure, I took the game 3. Bang, I took the world's best player.
Right.
Oh, well, we played him the next year.
We beat him anyway, and the other guy still won it. So, like, this is for him. I know it's a team game, but I do think these guys care about the individual accolades, and they care about their place in history. And Steph's place in history is forever cemented. If he's a 3-time champion, 2-time regular season MVP, and 1-time finals MVP, that checks every single box.
And that's what happened to KD. That was his validation last year.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
All right, coming up, speaking of LeBron James, is LeBron not doing enough to help the Cavs? It made Nick choke. That's next on First Things First.
Pardon.
Brought to you by the unexpected energy of ExxonMobil. Gronk is back at mandatory minicamp after skipping voluntary workouts, waiting for his deal to get done. When asked whether he wants a new deal before the season, Rob Gronkowski responded, well, who doesn't? CeCe, will the Patriots get a deal done with Gronk, do you think?
You see him there.
Yeah.
Gronk put his foot down. Very seldom do you have the leverage, especially in New England. This is not something that we've seen. Randy Moss asked for a new contract, too. You know what they told him? It's been nice knowing you.
Yeah.
It's been nice knowing you.
And so I think people need to know, I believe the reason Gronk did show up without the new deal being fully secured is he would start forfeiting money if he's not at the mandatory portion of this. But there will be a point in time where Rob Gronkowski gets this new deal. I would imagine that will be before an adjustment deal, before week 1.
It is the third and final week of Browns OTAs, and Baker Mayfield is making moves. The #1 overall pick was elevated to the second team behind Tyrod Taylor. Head coach Hugh Jackson says that Tyrod is still the starter. Chris, who starts week 1 for the Cleveland Browns?
Week 1, Tyrod will be the starter. He should be the starter. He will be, if the Browns, the best way to win week #1, unless he gets nicked during the preseason, would be with Tyrod Taylor. But before Halloween, that guy in that orange helmet will be in the Cleveland Browns under the center.
Typically, when you're drafting #1 overall, you don't really care about your record the following season. You just want to get as many reps, as many opportunities for that #1 pick. But when you're a team that's 1-31 over the last 2 years, it would be great for them to start 2-2. Whatever best thing you can do, because it's not just the quarterbacks that have gone 1-31.
Yes.
So I also think it'll be Tyrod. Give them the best chance to get off to a good start.
Hey, what happens when the most talked about player for much of the season in college basketball tries out for the team in the biggest media market in the country? It makes our show. That's what. Trae Young worked out for the Knicks Tuesday and said the thought of going to New York is, quote, pretty cool. Nick, does Trae Young make sense for the Knicks with that 9 pick?
Yeah, to me, he does. I think he'd be a good fit. I think he'd be a fan favorite. I am more bullish on him as a pro than I think a lot of people are. And I think that 7, 8, 9, 10 range is exactly where he should fall. So if he's there at 9, if I'm the Knicks, I'd take him.
Yeah, I'm concerned. Nick and I have talked about this. Great college player. I've seen a lot of players a lot like him. Maybe not as good, couldn't dribble, as Jamila told me. He's good off the bounce, see? I was like, okay, yeah, I'll give you that. But small players and guys who depend on the 3 in the NBA, typically they don't have long careers.
Finally, the Warriors already have a 2-0 lead over the Cavs. They could be adding a former NBA MVP. Andre Iguodala has been upgraded to questionable ahead of Game 3 in Cleveland tonight. CeCe, how much of an impact would a healthy Iggy be for Golden State?
Oh, he would definitely help them. You got another big body that you can throw at LeBron James. They don't need any more offensive help. You have another wing defender. Clay had a significant injury. They're saying a high ankle sprain in game #1. Plays 40 minutes, plays great in game #2. But as the series goes a long time, man, Clay would love to get a little blow. You put Iggy on that defender that Clay, he has the versatility. Man, it helps this team. It makes them fresher. And let's not forget, not to get ahead of ourselves, but game 3 and 4 in this series are the only 2 games where there are only 2 days in between. So they're playing for Wednesday, and then they're going to play Friday. So for me, I wouldn't play him in game #3 because you got Friday's game.
Yeah.
I would keep him out, have him questionable, get a couple more days of positive. And there is no practice, but he gets 2 more days of conditioning, and then I would go with him Friday in game #4.
I think that is likely what they will do. And obviously, a healthy Andre Iguodala helps them defensively. I do not think a healthy Andre Iguodala, from what they've had thus far offensively, makes a big impact just because the guys off the bench have been so good. The Warriors bench in this series is shooting 60% from the field. The Warriors bench in this series, if you just remove the 3-pointers, are shooting 76% from the field. So, offense, now those guys will regress to the mean, which is why it is important they get him back at some point, because Jordan Bell's not going to keep shooting 80%. JaVale McGee's not going to shoot 90%. Livingston's not going to shoot 100%. So eventually those guys will regress, and if you can put in Andre Iguodala, that will help you. But where we talk about his impact is his defensive impact on LeBron. If he is only 75%, that defensive impact is totally muted. He needs to be full strength if you're going to say, hey, you haven't played in 2 weeks. Here's what we want you to do. Go guard the best player in the world. Go try to slow him down when he's playing at such a high level. So if I think tonight he's 80%, but he could be at 90, 95% on Friday, I would also wait until Friday.
You make a very good point. This Warrior team doesn't need any more offense right now. It could use a little more defense. But what's the one thing the Warriors are they missing anything where you're like, oh, actually they do need Iggy, or they need something else to really close this out? Is there any part of this game and this team that you watch and you're like, it's the one thing they could do better?
They're not playing perfect basketball, but they do have a system. The biggest problem is they can do so many things. What they hurt Cleveland with in game number 2 was they slipped the screens. They come up for the pick and roll. Instead of setting a pick, they were sliding to the bucket, which led to a lot of layups and dunks. What they might be missing, because if they put Iggy on the offensive end, I believe it hurts them. So now, man, the minutes. How do you manage the minutes? Because if Iggy's in the corner, I can help off him and help at the rim, hoping they throw the ball to him. Now with a shooter in the corner, they can't help, so they're getting more layups. So
here's the one thing, I think that the one thing that Iggy adds, and it's much like when we talk about the Cavs changing their rotation. Sometimes it's about who's playing. Sometimes it's about who's not playing. If Andre Iguodala is healthy, Nick Young doesn't have to play anymore. And Nick Young's been bad. So while Nick Young does add the spacing you're talking about because he's a threat from 3, he's a bad defender. He's if he's not hitting his 3-point shot, he's a below replacement level offensive player. So simply having him out of the rotation because the Warriors are short on wing players, that's where Andre Iguodala's impact might be the most felt, even if he's not elite defensively coming off the injury.
All right, let's talk more about the Cavs now. This segment is called LeBron James. In year 15, the King, as his disciples call him, is in the midst of arguably his best season and postseason ever. He played all 82 games and nearly every minute of every playoff game. Yet the video that surfaced of him reacting to having a timeout following J.R. Smith's Game 1 blunder has critics being critical. Why didn't he pick up his teammates? Why didn't he rally them before overtime? Here's LeBron James.
Me being criticized? No. You saying I got criticized for something, right? No, I don't believe that. Not me. I don't care. I don't care at all. We're in the NBA Finals. How much more picking up teammates you want me to do? We're in the NBA Finals to compete for a championship.
We could read between the lines there
I don't think you have to read between the lines.
We don't have to read between the lines there at all to know that LeBron knows exactly what he did and fully carried this team to the NBA Finals. What do you think about what LeBron said, CC?
People just aren't realistic. And LeBron had a natural reaction when the game went into overtime. And people would say, oh, look, you can't react that way. Well, how are you supposed to react? This is a real situation. People work with other people. People are in relationships. We don't always react that way. We don't always react the right way. But we expect LeBron James, a guy that I haven't seen the type of scrutiny under an athlete since at an early age of 16 on the cover of Sports Illustrated at 18 and lived up to the hype. Yeah, he should be pissed. He played 82 games. He literally carried the franchise to NBA Finals. Man, we have had the stats. We have had the storylines. We've had guys hurt. We've seen it. JR throws a
ball of soup on Damon Jones.
on one of the coaches. The coach takes a leave of absence because the pressure, lack of sleep, not the right diet. What else needs to happen? LeBron's trying to pull out every stop. He wears the suit with Isaiah Thomas's pants to game number 1 and 2. He's trying to do anything that he can to be able to will this team to victory. And the thing about LeBron is, and I said this yesterday, the stats will. Kevin Love, what is he known as, Nick?
Kevin Love?
Yes.
In Minnesota, he was a 25-10 guy.
Right, but because he won a title, what's he known as?
Oh, he's
now?
a champion, sorry.
Right, what about the other guy? LeBron's the only one we keep the record.
Right.
All right? LeBron's record in finals.
3-5 in the finals. Everyone else is just a champion.
Yes.
Everyone else is a champion. LeBron's a 3-time champion, but it's called 3-5.
Yes.
Listen, that was a moment of actual honesty. With LeBron, I don't want to say broke character, but LeBron has done as good of a job as any athlete I've ever seen at consistently presenting a public image and answering questions properly and thinking about things, and not always, because you can't always be totally honest. And LeBron in the moment broke character for a second and was honest. Like, are you bleeping kidding me? Hey, they're saying I'm not doing enough. Well, we're in the NBA Finals, so I'd say that's pretty good evidence I've done a lot. Because what was unsaid, the subtext to your point was, have you seen my teammates? Have you seen who I'm playing with? Just show America in these playoffs what LeBron is contributing per game. This points, rebounds, and assists. LeBron's giving you 52.7. Here are the next three best Cavs. Kevin Love at 26.4, George Hill at 14.1, Tristan Thompson at 12.7. That adds up to 53.2. So LeBron by himself is contributing almost the identical amount of points, rebounds, and assists as his next three best teammates, his next three most productive teammates. So what LeBron is saying there is, you've got to be kidding me. Like, no one has ever done more for a team.
No.
That's something that LeBron knows it. I think historians of the game know it. I did last night, because I saw this quote, Jenna. I did, over the last 30 years, tried to come up with a list of the guys who did the most to get their teams to an NBA Finals or a championship. I came up with Hakeem Olajuwon in '94, because they didn't have Clyde yet.
Right.
Shaquille O'Neal in 2000, Kobe was young, and Shaq was just a dominant force. Allen Iverson in 2001, LeBron James in 07, and LeBron James this year. Those are the five best one-man bands I've seen. Hakeem, Shaq, AI, and LeBron, the first time, all had top five defenses. So at least those guys, while they had to do everything offensively, they had good team defenses. CeCe, where were the Cavs ranked defensively this year?
29th.
29th. That's not a top 28 defense. Those guys, so LeBron is doing all of this with no help offensively and a terrible defensive team, and people are now saying, all right, we know going into that overtime you had 49, 8, and 8. But you didn't give JR a back rub on the sideline.
Because the problem with being so good is that the bar is elevated so high. It's what you say all the time, that we're just accustomed to LeBron going out and giving you whatever, 30 points, 40 points, 51 points in that game. We're like, oh, we'll probably do it again. Like it's nothing. The bar is so high. And so he shows one human moment and one normal moment for any other player, and all of a sudden he gets criticized.
Yeah, I mean, I expect people to nitpick because they got nothing better to do. But the truth of the matter, when you're in sports and you're in competition, yeah, we all would look at 24 hours afterwards, like, yeah, I might have reacted. But LeBron, if I'm him, even after looking at it 6 days later, I still ain't speaking to him because I ain't got nothing good to say to him. Why should he change, all right, for everyone else? And you know what you can go in? I could rub JR on the back, and we could still lose. Okay, we can still lose in overtime.
And in all the time we've talked about this, I don't know that we've made this point, which is while that loss theoretically is equally devastating for everyone, but LeBron's got more on the line, but losing game one of the finals is tough. Losing it in that context is tough. Also for LeBron, that sequence from the refs to Kevin Love's foul to George Hill's missed free throw to JR's mental blunder, those four things, you know what they stole from him? His iconic moment. That for a guy that has a legacy, and we talk about his legacy, that game, winning that game against that team, because he went 49, 8, and 8, which is where he was at.
Right. Passed the ball at the end.
Passed the ball at the end to give George Hill the ball. And what JR also stole from him unintentionally, LeBron's wide open at the top of the key when JR gets the rebound.
Right.
It could have been 52, 8, and 8. And a game winner at the buzzer. LeBron, when we talk about his career highlight film, obviously the jump shot against the Spurs to win Game 7 is there. The block on Iggy is maybe the most prominent one. There are certain moments, the couple game winners in these playoff runs. This game could have led his career highlight film. And instead it's the toughest loss of his career. And the expectation is because in the moment he didn't all of a sudden turn into the mascot. He didn't do enough. I personally, there's a lot of people I respect, friends of mine in the media, that are really criticizing him for this week. It's one of the most laughable things I've ever seen.
You're right. Patting him on the back might not have done anything. There's a good chance they go out and the same exact thing happens in overtime.
And it's my fault that we didn't play well in overtime now.
Right.
Okay.
Of
Right.
course.
Yeah.
Of course. It's LeBron's fault that that Klay Thompson hits a three. It's all nonsense.
All right, we'll take a little break. Coming up, a Super Bowl contender that many people are overlooking. Next on First Things First. Welcome back to First Things First. We're now joined by Super Bowl champ Chris Canty. Chris, how's it going? Thanks for giving us just a little basketball break.
Thanks for you guys having me in. I appreciate it.
Getting ready
Get a chance
for,
to chop it up, talk a little football.
Yeah, a little mini camp action.
It's always good. It's always good.
We love to have you. All right,
Because
one
the
of the
NBA
teams.
Finals is pretty much a wrap.
Fall back. Let's wait for tonight.
Nick, you keep talking
Let's
about
wait
it, and
for
LeBron
tonight.
James is arguably the greatest player of all times, but stop
But-
it. The Cavs can't.
Let's enjoy tonight.
We can
Canty.
enjoy it, but we know what's going to happen. It's
All
like
right.
Titanic the movie. You know how it's going to end.
Sweeps aside, San Francisco's new golden boy, Jimmy Garoppolo, will have quite the fairy tale to uphold this season. The Niners quarterback started only 5 games last season, played in 6, but the way people are talking, you'd think the guy was Montana or something. San Fran in the mix as a dark horse team to compete for a Super Bowl. But Jimmy G says he's not paying attention to the noise from the outside. Chris, we'll start with you. Chris Canty, are the 49ers legit Super Bowl contenders with what you see they have and how they finished the season last year?
No, they're not legit Super Bowl contenders
Awesome.
with that
Thanks for
supporting
coming
cast.
in.
But, I mean, I think this is a team that can compete. They can be a 500, 8-8, 9-7 type of ball club, potentially challenge for a playoff spot. I think that's where the 49ers are. It's a young group that's playing with a lot of confidence. You saw how they finished the season last year when Jimmy G was inserted into the starting lineup. They won 5 games. Now, 3 of those games were against teams that were in the postseason that year. Now, granted, the Los Angeles Rams sat a lot of their starters in that regular season finale, but you can't ignore the impact that Jimmy G had on that offense. And we saw with Kyle Shanahan and his relationship with Matt Ryan in that second year, Matt Ryan made that improvement, became an MVP caliber quarterback. I look for something comparable to that. Not exactly the same because the supporting cast is not the same, but I look for Jimmy G to have that kind of improvement in year 2, Kyle Shanahan's system. So the division, you look at the landscape of the NFC West, it's not a very tough division. The Seattle Seahawks, they're retooling that defense. That's a team that's a middling group right now. And then you look at the Arizona Cardinals, first-year head coach, first-year defensive coordinator, and then you don't know what you're going to get from the quarterback position. So they're trying to regroup as well. So I look at the San Francisco 49ers and say they should have an opportunity to be a 500 club, 8-8, 9-7. That's what I'm looking for from this season. And, of course, Jimmy G is going to be a big part of that.
What does Andrew Luck keep saying? It's important not to skip steps. I feel like that's what a lot of the media and the Vegas bookmakers are doing with the San Francisco 49ers. They're trying to skip a step. There typically is a step between rebuilding and Super Bowl contention. And that step
Or
is
3 steps.
becoming above average, competing to be at 500, maybe a game above 500. Maybe you steal a game, so you're 2 games above 500, and then look, you're competing for a playoff spot. That's where I view San Francisco. I think anything less than 7 wins would be very disappointing this year. I think anything more than 10 would be skipping a step. I think they are exactly where you're saying. You should project them to win 8 games. If they win 9, they did well. If they win 10, they did great. Anything past that, I think, is unrealistic. Like, I know, they won 6 games last year, but they also started 1-10. Like, it is tough to have the talent of a 1-10 football team and then all of a sudden have the talent of a Super Bowl contending football team, even if you upgrade the quarterback position.
And also, a lot of the guys in that locker room, they've lost a lot of games. So now, yes, they finished the season strong. But I see this every year in the NFL. Team finishes strong, 4-0, 5-1, and everyone has all these expectations as if 1 + 1 = 2. So they're going to be able to duplicate those wins the next year. And it's not that way. A lot of times in the league, you don't have carryover. Those OTAs, those off seasons for those young teams that have been losing, they become very, very important. So for me, yes, there's hope in San Francisco, but is it Super Bowl hope? No, it's not Super Bowl hope. They would have a great season by getting into the playoffs. Yes. That would be a great season. The fans of San Francisco, this franchise, yes, they're back in the right direction. Kyle Shanahan, John Lynch is the general manager, and Jimmy G is the quarterback. But, man, there's a process that takes place, and look at the NFC. And Nick and I have gone over this and over this and over this. There's a lot of good quarterbacks. So there's a lot of good stories.
Right.
You can, if San Francisco is a Super Bowl team, then there's 10 teams in the NFC that I see that can go to the Super Bowl.
Yeah, and there are a lot of teams in the NFC that would be disappointed if we're talking about San Francisco being a playoff team. So the one thing that gives me confidence that San Francisco will take that next step, Nick, is when you see Kyle Shanahan and John Lynch have the confidence in Jimmy Garoppolo that they do when they gave him that $137.5 million contract this offseason, based on the sample size, based on being around him since they traded for him midseason last year. I think that's a reason that we can believe in Jimmy G taking the next step with his progression. And then he's saying all the right things. He's doing all the right things and talking about practice, their approach with the OTAs, taking it day by day, trying to win the day, going into training camp, their mentality. They want to have an environment that breeds competition. I think those are all the right things that your quarterback should be saying, because ultimately he's the guy that establishes the standard and sends the message to the other 52 guys in the locker room.
Listen, he's a great package. He looks like a quarterback. He acts like a quarterback. You put him in a uniform, he's a quarterback. He finished the season last year winning games for a Niners team that had nothing to look forward to. But you said they gave him, Lynch and Shanahan had confidence in him. They gave him this big deal. They traded for him. So he must be a good quarterback. What did you see last year that leads you to believe this is the guy, this is the skill set, this is the guy that's going to take this 49ers down? I mean, do you have as much confidence in him as the Niners brass do?
I do, and I'll give you a little bit of nugget right here. In 5-step drops in the NFL, Jimmy Garoppolo had the highest passer rating, 116.9. He had the highest passer rating out of any quarterbacks with 5-step drops last year. So that tells me he's very accurate, he's quick with getting the ball out of his hands, and those are important traits to have at the quarterback position. Now, I thought that John Lynch did him a solid by drafting Mike McGlinchey to tackle in the top 10 of the NFL draft. If you're going to go ahead and invest and buy the house, which is the franchise quarterback, you better get homeowners insurance, and that's making sure your tackle positions are solidified. The only question I have about Jimmy Garoppolo is he a quarterback that can elevate the play of everybody around him, or is he one of those quarterbacks that does a really good job when he's got a solid supporting cast? That's the only thing that's left to be answered. We won't know that until we see a larger sample size from him.
And this franchise, it's going to take some time to get him the type of support. We start on that offensive line. That's very, very important. They got to have a running game. And also, unless they think he's Tom Brady, who Tom Brady can make all the wide receivers work,
you got to get some more.
Man, you got to get some studs. You got to get some guys that can. You got to get some guys that can run routes. Guys can get intermediate receivers. Guys that can take over games. You need insurance on the $137.5 million. And the way you get insurance, put some meatheads up front, all right, that can protect him and make sure these don't get hit, and then put some cute little guys like myself on the outside, all right, that we can make some plays so that the pretty boy, the quarterback, Jenna says he's got the total package. We got to be able to help him out.
Well, you made, I thought, a really good point a few minutes ago when you said if they're a Super Bowl contender, then there's 10 Super Bowl contenders, just in the NFC.
Yes.
And so I jotted down teams last year that were better than San Francisco, that are bringing either everyone back or think they got better this offseason in the NFC alone. Philly, Dallas, Green Bay, Minnesota, New Orleans, Carolina, Atlanta, Los Angeles. That's 8 teams. That's 8 teams, all of which, and any ties, any questionable, what about Detroit? What about, I left them out. Those are 8 teams that were definitely better than them last year and that you expect to be as good, if not better, this year. Okay, so if that's why we have to be careful about the words we use. All of those teams are playoff contenders. There's a handful of those teams that I would say are definite Super Bowl contenders, and one of them will surprise us. But you can't have in a 16-team conference 9 or 10 teams be Super Bowl contenders. You can have 8 or 9 playoff contenders, but
it's been a while. How many teams make the playoffs?
6. 6 make the playoffs. And how many from the...
I'm with you, CC. It's simple math.
I'm going to let Nick be my numbers guy. Super Bowl? 1. Yeah, and so, that's why I think Jimmy G could be all the things. Kansas seems to be a little higher on Jimmy G than I am. But no matter what, the sample size is so small, nobody really knows. It's projection plus that 5-step drop note. I didn't know. That is noteworthy. That is interesting. And he was doing it in San Francisco without great wide receivers. But I just feel like he could be exactly what Chris is saying, and they still could be a 9-win team. Because they've spent money or they've spent draft picks on the offensive line, the defensive line. The skill guys, their secondary, their wide receivers, their running backs, that's where they haven't spent the resources.
One thing, too, though, you don't have to worry about, because ownership went out and they gave them security. Now, not only Jimmy G, but John Lynch and Shanahan, you're not going to see them panic. if they have a bad month. So that's what you need. You need to be an organization that's stable. No one's panicking. And let's not forget Jimmy G, where he came from. He came from New England. So if there's someone who can keep them steady and focused, he should be able to have that.
All right, Chris, stick around. We'll see you a little bit later on in the show. Coming up, let's get back to some basketball. What do the Cavaliers have to do to give themselves a chance to win tonight? Talk about that next on First Things First. Welcome back to First Things First. Look who we're joined by, former NBA All-Star Kenyon Martin. Hey, Kenyon.
Good to see you,
What
sir.
is going on? You enjoying this final series as much as we are?
Yeah, it's going as expected so far.
It is.
So far, so good by Golden State standards. So, hey.
They're loving the way it's going.
Yeah, of course,
Golden
of
State's
course.
like, best finals ever. It's so much fun. Yeah. All right, the NBA Finals resume tonight. Cavs down 2-0, coming off a brutal overtime loss in Game 1. But they know they'll get a boost tonight in front of the home crowd. They also know this series could easily have been tied if not for a couple of crucial mistakes, some gaffes, some bad play, and some questionable calls. But honestly, that's it. None of that makes LeBron feel any better, though.
I know it feels like we're down 2-0, and I don't like the way I feel. I don't like the way, the mood that I'm in right now. Knowing whatever, there's no you're down 2-0 and you feel better than you're down 2-0 before. It's just, when you're down like this in a deficit like this versus a team like this, there's no good feeling. So I personally don't feel good today of the deficit that we have. Not about tomorrow. I feel great about our opportunity.
All right, Kenyon, let's break this down a little bit. What do the Cavs need to do if they want to get back into this series, if they want to win the game tonight?
I revert back to last year, the way they played, I don't know if it was Game 3 or Game 4 when they shot the lights out.
No,
last
Game
year.
4. They scored 48 in the first quarter.
Game 3 was a very good game.
Yeah, but Game 4 last year, when they had to win that game and they played out of their mind, they need that kind of performance tonight. Golden State is coming in on a high note, playing out of this world, and LeBron has to be LeBron-ish and some, in order to have a shot. And I think he's playing unbelievable, but it hasn't been enough so far. So they're going home cooking, sleeping in their own bed for a few nights. Hopefully that helped the other guys out. You know what I'm saying? Seeing the wives, seeing the kids, kissing the dog, whatever you can think of that gets guys comfortable playing at home. Hopefully the rest of the guys did it. And let's see what they bring tonight. Tall task, though.
Okay, listen. I've been a fan of his for a long, long time.
Of Kenyon's.
Played basketball at University of Cincinnati right outside my hometown. So that's nice for TV.
Yeah.
But if you was playing,
yeah.
Because we talk about LeBron, man, forget about that.
Yeah.
Man, how can we muck up this game, Kenyon?
That's what they have to
because
do.
if me and you was playing in this game, I need you to be able to be yourself. Now, who in the Cavs can play that role to make this series ugly that the Cavs might have a chance? Because we keep going like this, if they keep averaging 110 points, it's going to be over in 4 or 5 games. So listen, forget the first comments you made, man.
Right,
how can I make this one ugly?
Play Kendrick Perkins.
Everyone keeps saying that.
And I don't think that's going to happen.
Right.
But, he's the only person on their roster that has some nasty in him.
So there's no one else even?
Tristan can't? All right, let me ask you about Tristan. Players, NBA
he
players
play hard.
think Tristan is soft.
He play hard.
Playing hard
and being hard and playing and the way that people look at you.
Now I'm getting
is
to the
something
good
totally
part.
different.
Right. So that's not even something they can do.
Not at all. Like I said, the one person who people look at can come back and do something.
Is sitting in a suit.
Is sitting in a suit, and how many minutes can he give you if he does suit
Can
up
LeBron do it?
No, it's not in it.
It's not his.
He would be out of his game.
And I think it'll take away from what he does. If him out there trying to be something that he's not an aggressor and
It's not Jeff Green. It's not George
No,
Hill.
none of those
guys. It's not Jose Calderon.
He's more feisty. I would play Calderon. He's feisty. I'm saying he gets up on the guy's skin at times. But the only person on their roster, man, that has any to him is Kendrick Perkins, I think. And he's not, like Steph asked him the other night. You see the way Steph looked at him. If the smallest guy on the other team don't respect you, the other guys, now Steph looked at him like, you ain't playing tonight.
Right. They wish Kendrick was in there because they can get up and down, and he wouldn't be able to get up and down again.
So it benefits the Warriors.
Yeah, it's so funny you say Perkins because we're going to talk about the Cavs' rotational changes later. And I was going to suggest they dress Perkins. Not that they play him, but just that they dress him. And psychological. So the Warriors are like, man, this guy might come out here and just try to take one of our. Because when he's wearing a suit, they know there's nothing he can do other than argue with Drake and yell at Steph. But I want to talk about this home road discrepancy for a minute because there's time in your career where you were the best or second best player on the team. There's time in your career when you're a role player on the team. Why is it that it seems like, and all the numbers back this up, that except for the true superstars, how good a guy is determined by what gym they're in. Like JR, who's been bad all year, his only good moments have been, JR is my guy, and his only good moments have been at home. Korver's been a different guy at home than on the road. We've seen it with the Warriors supporting cast as well.
Supporting cast and Steph.
Right. Steph home.
30 and 20.
And so what is the discrepancy there to you?
Well, Steph, I don't know what it is, Steph. Because
set Steph out of it.
Aside
the role players.
Energy and effort and attention to detail and defense, all that travels. You can take that on the road with you no matter what. Mm-hmm. People put too much emphasis and stock into making shots on the road. You know, if you play defense on the road and you give energy and effort and attention to detail, then your numbers, plus or minus whatever you want to look at, is going to be good, whether you're making shots or not. With Kyle Korver, he does one thing. Right. JR has become, does one thing, and he's not doing that right now. So what do you have with those guys when you go on the road? They're just a body in a suit. Mm-hmm. You know what I'm saying? They're just taking them space, basically. You know what I'm saying? On the road, when you're not paying attention, you're not locked in to everything else like the superstars are. Because superstars, each and every night you have to be locked in to lead your team in all aspects.
Yes.
You know what I'm saying? So those other guys need to follow suit to that, which they're not doing. You know what I'm saying? And then, like you said, the numbers are there. You know what I'm saying? The numbers are what they are at home and in the road, which I've never understood because energy travels, effort travels, defense travels, which those guys are not doing.
Nick, basketball's a little bit different than football, but I had a wide receiver coach, Hubbard Alexander, and he showed us a video of myself and Randy Moss catching touchdown passes in the Metrodome. He didn't show us actually catching the ball. He actually showed us the crowd. And he let us know every time we come into that building, it's our job to make the people come out their seats. Yeah. People come here to sit down, it's our job. But he also showed us film of us in Soldier Field, playing the Detroit Lions, in Lambeau Field. Yeah. And when we did something big, what the crowd did.
They set up their hands.
So they sat down in their seats when we did something big on the road. Now, what we see in the NBA is these role players, they play so much to the crowd. So when you utilize the crowd, it's hard to get your game off when you're on the road because you don't have that. The great players play the game, and the game is almost silent. They say, what did you hear? I didn't hear a whole bunch. So their variance when they play at home and you're playing against the best of the best, it becomes about talent. So the talent also transitions like energy and like defense. Talent transitions to the road also.
Yeah, I agree. And then if you have like certain guys on the road, like for me, I use the road crowd for energy. You know, like I know what I'm gonna do. I like the home crowd is gonna give you that because you're hype, you're in front of your family, and all that. But I use the road crowd. Like I want you to be quiet in there. Like that's our job to go on the road and to make the road fans sit on their hands and not be enthused about the game. Because if you come out and you dominant from the beginning of the game on defensive end, what do the home crowd have? You know what I'm saying?
Absolutely.
Nothing to go on. You know, so I've been in situations where I've been down on the road. I've been in situations where I went on the road and swept a team. You know what I'm saying? A few times with the Nets. You know what I'm saying? So we knew what it was to play on the road. And that energy and that effort and that attention to detail, all of that travels. Which those guys, you can see it. It's blatant how well they move around at home and how enthused they are at home. And you get on the road, it's like, oh, we don't want to be here. Like,
right. And also something Nick pointed out to me was the game has changed to basketball. In your day, the thing that got the crowd going was either a defensive play or a dunk. Yeah. Now it's the three-point shot.
Definitely.
So now what players are looking to try to get up off of happens to be that three ball. So now you have a team like Golden State and the Cavs. We know that when they're shooting the ball well, they play so much better.
And we know that Golden State's going to be doubling LeBron again. And so those guys are going to have open shots. JR's going to have open shots. Say it again?
What took so long?
For the Pacers, the Raptors,
yeah, what
the
took
Celtics,
so long?
I don't know.
I've been saying this since day one. What took so long?
I love the fact that the stars, they don't care. They're going to play well home and away. It's the role players. That's why the Warriors have literally nothing to worry about. They have like
They just have nothing but
155.
stars.
Nothing
Yeah,
but
because they have
stars
4
on
stars, you know what I'm saying?
Exactly.
So
it's
if
all
one doesn't work, then you got 3 other guys to carry that torch.
Kenyon, stick around. Coming up, should we expect another dominant performance from Steph Curry tonight? Next on First Things First. NBA Finals Game 3 tips off tonight. Last year at this time, Warriors were up 2-0 and heading to Cleveland for Game 3, where some thought Cavs would win. This year, Warriors are up 2-0 and heading to Cleveland for Game 3, where some think the Cavs will win. Wait a minute. Warriors won last year. If they do it again, it would clinch a 3rd title in 4 years for Golden State. Steph Curry, however, isn't taking anything for granted.
We understand how hard it is to win in this building. No matter what's going on in the series, when you change venues, you got to reassert your dominance and try to find that right momentum to start. And we have a great opportunity, tomorrow to do that. And I want to be, a part of leading that charge and playing an amazing game tomorrow and really taking control of the series.
Steph Curry ended Game 2, played lights out, the end of the game, the 4th quarter. What do you expect from him now, Game 3?
For him to be that. For that to carry over. Got his playoff legs under him.
Yeah.
Yes, that's important.
I think he sees that light right now. It's tangible. It's touched. He's touching it right now. He's visualizing it. He's going out and being him, man. And they have not one soul on the Cleveland roster that can guard this kid,
Yes.
at all. Like, they try to figure it out. The only thing I've been using an analogy the last few years, listen, they need the the movie Celtic Pride.
Yeah. Oh, kidnap him? Get Damon Wayans involved?
Only shot they got. The only shot they have of coming close to winning this is for him not to be there.
Well,
and him not to play well.
And what they don't have this year that they had the last 2 years is a guy to make him work on the other end. That I understand Clay was mostly guarding Kyrie, but Steph would get switched onto Kyrie.
Yes.
And one of the reasons Steph, I believe, in 2016, because 2016 is the only finals he wasn't good.
It's not Dellavedova?
Well, oh, yeah, not Dellavedova. They can't make him work. So, the 2016, it was the series before the finals goes 7. Then the NBA finals go 5, 6, 7. And Steph, in the Western Conference Finals, is chasing around Russ when he gets switched on to him. In the NBA Finals, chasing around Kyrie. Man, he's not worried about George Hill. He's not worried about JR the way JR has been playing the last few rounds, or you could argue the last few years. So Steph can rest on one end of the court and just focus on his offense. And the thing that is so dangerous about Steph is this dude was 6 of 18 through 3 quarters. And then had one of the greatest shooting 4th quarters in finals history. He can turn it on instantly with no warning coming.
And this is the type of Game 2 that you mentioned. He's talking about he doesn't have any fear. Man, he's got great matchups.
Yeah.
He's got a great matchup with George Hill. George Hill can't do anything with him. And anytime they go pick and roll, any switch that they get besides LeBron. So if me, I'm not, man, we know we can't kidnap him, but I would take, just like they did with LeBron, I'd take the ball out of his hand. I'd make Draymond or whoever that 5th starter is, they're going to have to beat me. They're going to have to score 20 points.
Good luck with that.
Well, okay.
Good luck with that. Because right now it's Iguodala. I'm saying he's coming back right now.
If he comes back,
throw the ball to him, he can go make plays.
Yeah, well, I'm going to give him that chance. Because I know if Steph gets off, if Steph gets 30 points,
they lose.
I'm going to lose. So I'm just going to take the ball out of his hand, not all the time, but there are going to be times during the game we're going to say we're going to trap Steph because you just can't. You can't with this defense. 29th in the NBA, they got 3 bad individual defenders on the court at all times.
I'm with you.
Now, LeBron, when he's focused, he's a good on-ball defender. Tristan Thompson is limited. But the rest of them, they are bad individual defenders. So I got to trap Steph to be able to get the ball out of his hand because that's the only way that they're going to – that's how you force turnovers, too.
And blitz the pick and roll and try to do that. It's just hard now that they've added KD.
That, too, but when you got a team so willing to pass the ball and get off of it and averaging 30 assists.
Yes.
Like – other teams, you throw the ball to somebody in a situation, their number one thing is score.
Yeah.
This team, they put you in a bad way. They throwing the ball to JaVale McGee last game. No, I was sitting there watching a game with a friend of mine. I'm like, I'm throwing the ball to him every time until you make an adjustment. And what did he do earlier? 5 for 5. You know what I'm saying?
Yes.
So there's things that Golden State does to you that put you in compromised situation. You trap Steph, they're going to find an open guy.
But even when they had that big first quarter with the layups, the Cavs still were there because they were just twos. Yeah. It's the momentum, the energy, the Golden State. They're not going to kill you with the twos. It's the three ball that's going to knock you out.
Well, we all talked about Steph, and you mentioned KD. Who's a bigger challenge to this Cavs team? A red-hot Steph Curry or a very consistent but very productive Kevin Durant?
I think Steph. I think Steph, because he can get hot and he can carry that thing.
Yeah.
You know, like you said, KD has been consistent. You know what you're going to get from KD. He's been that staple. He's been there since he's been there. You know what he's going to get. But for Steph, it's like he's the engine that makes that thing go.
When Steph plays great, they don't lose.
Yeah.
Period, point blank.
Yeah.
We've seen go to the Western Conference Finals. KD scored 37 and 38 in the first 2 games. They won one. Yeah. They lost one.
Yeah.
Which is why if I'm Cleveland, I want to see if KD is willing to do what he did in Game 2 again. Yeah. I want to dare KD.
Man, he played an amazing game.
He played an amazing game. It only took 14 shots.
He was so under control.
He was so efficient. Yeah. All right, KD. See, can you? Like, I don't know how much the Finals MVP matters to KD. I don't know how much the fact that everyone's talking about Steph matters to KD. Yeah. But we're going to test you on that. Because we're not doubling you, KD. You're going to get beneficial matchups. Because there's they don't have good answers, KD.
Yeah, not at
That's
all.
The thing is, when you have this much talent and the other team's this limited defensively, it's not like you can really afford to double anybody. Yeah. But if they want to blitz Steph on the pick and roll, I'm fine with that. If KD wants to take 19 mid-range shots over J.R., Corver, and George Hill, I'd rather that than have the offense run through Steph. Because I think they're beatable the first way. I don't think they're beatable the second way.
Yeah, if he get 19 mid-range shots and making 15 of them, then hey, good luck, man. But no, they playing at a clip that is unmatched. You know what I'm saying? Because you can't take one guy away. You can't focus in on him. Clay can get it going, which we all know at.
Yeah.
Not to me, Draymond, he's going to be there. He's going to do what he does.
He's a good basketball player.
He's a solid basketball player, and he's going to make things go. But when your fourth best basketball player is Klay Thompson,
you're in trouble.
Wow.
You ain't, listen.
Yeah, you said something there.
You're in trouble. And he's great, but he's your fourth best overall basketball player.
Right.
But he has a special skill set that you can't take away.
All right, Kenyon, we'll see you a little bit later on the show. We got to take a break. Coming up, back to football. Gronk chiming in on his contract situation. Next on First Things First. How does this room for you right next to me? Time for some stories to start your morning, brought to you by the unexpected energy of ExxonMobil. Rob Gronkowski is back in mandatory minicamp after skipping voluntary workouts, waiting for his deal to get done. When asked whether he wants a new deal before the season, Gronk responded, "Who doesn't?" CC, will the Pats get a deal done with Gronk?
Absolutely. I believe they'll come to an understanding. That's part of Gronk being there. And Gronk's a football player. I know he wants to, people talk about him wrestling. That's potentially in his future and everything. But he's a football player. You're at minicamp right now. That's how you get better. What are the Pats going to do new offensively this year? You start to implement that at the minicamp. Glad he's there.
And listen, I don't criticize guys for not going to voluntary OTAs, but if you're under contract and you skip a mandatory minicamp, you're opening some criticism. He showed up for the mandatory portion of his offseason, and I do believe he will get a contract adjustment before the year begins.
All right, it's the third and final week of Browns OTAs. Baker Mayfield is making moves. The #1 overall pick was elevated to the second team behind Tyrod Taylor. Hugh Jackson says that Tyrod is still the starter. All right, CC, who starts week 1 for Cleveland?
Tyrod starts week #1, but just like the helmet, man, when the pumpkins start, you get ready to cut out the eyeballs to make the jack-o'-lantern. Man, Baker Mayfield going to be on that football field. That's what they drafted him #1 for. He's going to start in his rookie year, I believe, in the month of October. That's when it's done, Nick.
When you've won one game in the last 2 years, you're 1-31. There are a lot of players on this team that have never had a winning record, that have never had a winning month, that have never had a winning 2-week stretch. If Tyrod gives you the best chance to get the season started off right, keep Hugh Jackson off the hot seat for at least a couple months. You do that even if you know you're going to Baker eventually. Tyrod's their best opening week option.
All right, what happens when the most talked about player for much of the season in college basketball tries out for the team in the biggest media market in the country? Well, it makes our show, that's what. Trae Young worked out for the Knicks on Tuesday and said the thought of going to New York is pretty cool. That was my thought, too. Nick, does Trae Young make sense for the Knicks with the 9th overall pick?
To me, he does. I think that's exactly the area of the draft he should go. I don't think he should go in the top 5, but I don't think he should fall out of the top 12. Also, the Knicks have need for shooting. They have need for guard play. No disrespect to Tim Hardaway Jr. And I think Trae Young, when he starts taking smarter shots, which he will in the NBA when he's not asked to carry an entire team, I think you'll see him as a very effective range shooter.
The Knicks do need guard play. They do need shooters. But if you look at Scott Perry, the general manager, if you look at Fizdale, the coach, they're guys that they like bigger bodies in their model NBA player. And also, they want to play some defense and be physical. Can you do that with Trae? They would be going away from how they think they can get back to being relevant.
All right, moving on to the NBA Finals. Ty Lue will look to shake up the Cavs' rotation in Game 3 tonight. Lue said he's going to give Rodney Hood a chance. Hood has played a total of 7 minutes over the last 7 games. All right, Nick, will mixing up the Cavs rotation give them a spark in Game 3? And if so, is this the mix? Is this the...
I would give Rodney Hood another chance. Rodney Hood, when you made the trades at the deadline, the player that I believed you acquired with the most upside was Rodney Hood. George Hill was the one we knew would be a consistent performer if he was healthy. But Rodney Hood was a guy who I thought could score off the bounce, could occasionally give you 25 points, as he did in Utah, and could be good for you offensively while adding some length defensively. He lost his minutes for good reason. He was so weak with the basketball, and the playoff moments seemed way too big for him, just like they did last year in Utah.
And the finals are going to be less big?
Well, at this point, you're out of good options, because Clarkson's going to be out of the rotation. He's got to be. He's been as ineffective and as inefficient as any player offensively in modern NBA playoff history. So you've got to adjust it somehow. I like the idea of going to Rodney Hood a little more.
Rodney Hood has been the type of player that with LeBron, they get better with LeBron. Rodney Hood doesn't like to dribble an awful lot. No one is better as far as finding someone in their shooting pocket. Now, Rodney's left-handed, but LeBron is the best in the business of finding you wherever you are. That's what he's done with shooters throughout his career. When he's won championships, it's because they spaced the floor and they had people like him. But the thing about Rodney Hood is he's far more athletic than the other shooters that have been around LeBron. Shane Battier, Ray Allen, Cal Korver. He can put the ball on the ground and go to the hole and be able to get a shot. So you would think that, man, he was going to thrive playing with LeBron. It hadn't happened that way. My biggest problem is I do believe that he should play more. My biggest problem with this whole move is, why'd you tell him? Why'd you bring it up?
Why?
Why don't you just lay sleep? Like, you don't have to announce that to the media.
Oh, not tell Rodney Hood. Why'd you tell?
No, I tell Rodney Hood. I tell the team.
The Warriors
I tell the team too. We're not going to mention it. We're going with the same lineup. We're doing the same thing that we lost 2 games to, so that the Warriors don't think that the Warriors don't have time to adjust. You know when the Warriors start adjusting? If I'm coaching the Cavs, when Rodney Hood goes in the game. That's when they start to say, oh, man, we need a game plan for a guy that we didn't expect to play. Now you've given them what? 24-hour notice. So now you know something? He's from the Western Conference. He's from Utah. Hey, coaches, give me 20 Rodney Hood clips so I can show you how we've defended him and what's the game plan, so that when they decide to put him in the game, they adjusted yesterday, just like our show adjusted to having him on. All right, so that's not something that Ty Lue needed to do. From a strategic standpoint, if that was his strategic move for Game 3, he lost the edge by announcing it and letting the Warriors adjust to him playing more minutes than what they were playing.
Ty Lue, what are you doing, man? What are you doing? Listen to that guy. Let's talk about the Houston Rockets now. The season is just barely over for them, and they're already looking ahead. That's what you do when you basically come one hamstring injury away from beating the Warriors. Chris Paul's injury sidelined him for Games 6 and 7. Many thought they could have beaten the Warriors in the conference finals had he played. CP3 facing free agency, and reports are that Houston will need to give Paul the max to bring him back. Nick, would signing CP3 to the max be a good decision for this Rockets team?
For the short term, yes. For the long term, no, but you don't always get to have both.
That's right.
Period, point blank. Like, they believe they can win a championship. Daryl Morey was asked yesterday about his comments, if he regrets his comments about saying he's obsessed with Golden State. And he said, I got to be honest with you. I don't understand anyone that isn't obsessed with beating Golden State. They're the champions, they're the best team.
Yes.
If you're trying to win a championship, how could you not be obsessed with beating them? They believe, in Houston, man, they believe if CP3 is healthy, they're in the NBA Finals, probably up 2-0.
Right.
They believe, even when CP3 is not healthy, if they get a fairer whistle in Game 6 or 7, they might be in the NBA Finals up 2-0. They also know this. Man, they agree. I'm not reporting this. This is conjecture on my behalf. I want to make this clear. But they told CP3 he was going to get his money. CP3 turned down.
There's just not a lot of deals done without some understanding on the back end, especially it's not that, okay, this deal was done, but typically players who have this type of respect. Chris Paul, what he has around the league, what he has with the Players Association. And I just don't see Daryl Morey or Tillman, the owner, I don't see them. And Tillman just started owning the Rockets. I just don't see them reneging on something they made a promise, because it wouldn't be good as far as their word going around the league.
And people need to understand this part, because I'm glad you brought up the Players Association. Chris Paul, in the last CBA that was negotiated, which Chris Paul's the president of the Players Association, they changed the rules almost just so CP3 and LeBron could get max deals. What do I mean by that? They did have an over 35 rule, which was you cannot give a player a full 5-year max contract that will extend past his age 35 season. They made it the over 37 rule. Why? Oh, it's because Chris Paul going to be
Modern
37.
technology, man.
Right.
Modern technology.
So Chris Paul didn't have them change the CBA, turn down a max deal from the Clippers to not get one from Houston. Now, there is one scenario, C, where I think he doesn't get a max deal. And that's if the Rockets come to him and say, we can get LeBron. But
that's a hometown discount, though.
Exactly right.
Yeah, and him and LeBron are tight. So that would be an understanding. I'm going to give up that, and that would win him a lot of fans.
And it would give him the best chance to win championship.
Yes.
And so I think Chris Paul's worst-case scenario, I believe, is he ends up with the max deal. Now, what that means for the Rockets 4 years from now, the Rockets right now have to do something I tell my kids not to do, which is not worry about your tomorrow self, only worry about your today's self.
Explain that to me. Explain to me why it's not good for this team in the league in 4 years.
Well, for the league, forget the league, for the team. I mean, in 4 years, Chris Paul will be 36 going into a season, making $44 million a year.
Okay.
In 5 years, Chris Paul will be 47 going. I'm sorry, 47. Will be 37 going into a year, making $47 million a year. Wow. James Harden's extension hasn't even kicked in yet. Harden's extension doesn't even kick in next year. It kicks in the year after. So what you're talking about is 2 years from now, Harden and Chris Paul making a combined 76, then 82, then 88, then 94. Now, Harden's younger. Harden's 4 years younger than CP3, but you are still talking about in 2023 paying a 33-year-old James Harden and a 37-year-old Chris Paul $94 million. But you just got to do it, I think.
And do you agree that Chris Paul would give the team the hometown discount to get LeBron? Would he do that?
I think that Chris Paul's a smart man. And whatever money he was given up, he would win over as far as accolades and respect if he is a champion. Okay. So whatever he would trade all that in, he's made a heck of a lot of money.
And I think LeBron would be giving up money as well. I think it would be similar to what happened in Miami. In Miami, they all took a discount, Bosh, Wade, and LeBron, to come together. I also think how these finals go is going to matter. If the Cavs end up winning these two in Cleveland, right, and the Cavs take them 7, but then lose, then maybe Chris Paul and LeBron say to themselves, man, my team took them 7, your team took them 7. We might not have to come together. But if the Warriors sweep the Cavs, and LeBron's like, I need to go somewhere else, Chris Paul knows, man, I don't know. How healthy am I going to be? Because that's the other part of this, Chris, and that's the thing I wanted to ask you about before we move on. If you're the Rockets, I believe they've already committed to it. But how nervous would you be about Chris Paul and soft tissue injury at his size and his age and committing $200 million to him over 5 years?
I'm concerned about it, but I'm trying to put one of those trophies. I got 2 of them. I'm trying to get 3. So that's the price. Tillman, hey, man, whatever business you and your brother's in, y'all better keep the doors open and keep selling, because it's worth it in the long run. Chris Paul brings that to your organization. If they think that if he would have been there in Game 6 and 7, they would have won, then that's what you have to go ahead and make that investment.
All right, let's take a break. Coming up, wait till you hear what Bill Belichick had to say about Tom Brady. If you're a Patriots fan, I hope you're watching. That's next on First Things First. Welcome back to First Things First. Super Bowl champ Chris Canty is back with us. What's up, Chris? Thanks for coming back. I mean, it was what you were supposed to do, and you did it, so that's awesome. Sorry.
You did so great in the opening segment. If people are new to our television show,
I was like, don't say anything.
Jenna's got this
Jen,
thing
are you
when Chris
trolling
Canty
me
comes
now?
out.
You make her nervous, bro.
It's just
I think
me,
that's
though.
what it is.
I mean, she's a world-class broadcaster.
Coach Pagano,
You come
it's
in,
fine.
she
Coach
just
Mangini, it's
Sorry,
fine.
I don't know what it
Kenyon Martin,
is.
all good.
I know.
Chris Canty sits down.
I did it. The first segment you came on was great. I said hello. We started talking
Right,
sports.
because the first segment you didn't try to add any sauce to it.
No more
Just
sauce,
do an
Chris.
Intro.
I'm not
Just
adding
do an
any
intro.
more sauce.
What'd she
All
try to do?
I don't
I
add
don't
some
know.
sauce to
I added
it.
a
I
little
don't know
sauce
why.
and then yeast, and then everything got blown up and we're out.
She brought back the yeast.
Right, okay.
It's not
Let's
helping
read
yourself.
now. Here we go. If this NFL offseason has taught me anything, it's that optional means optional and mandatory means mandatory. Something threw me off this morning. Tom Brady and Rob Gronkowski are back in the building for mandatory minicamp. Bill Belichick met with the media yesterday and spoke for hours and hours and hours about Tom Brady, sharing stories and adorable pictures from his cell phone of the two of them. I am so kidding. He did, however, answer a few questions about Brady.
I feel like you and Tom are kind of in a good place right now and a good understanding of where each other sits.
I've always had a good relationship with Tom.
Does it concern you at all that he chose to stay away from OTAs this year?
He's done that before.
The whole time?
Yeah, if you go back a few years, there was times when he wasn't. I mean, look, again, it's a voluntary program, so that's what it is. You have to ask him about it.
Just, I mean, say less. Please, less is more, Bill. Less is more. CC, we're going to start with you. How much does the relationship between Bill Belichick and Tom Brady actually matter? A, they've got history. B, they already know what they're doing. Does this relationship matter as they get ready to start this season?
Oh, no, it matters.
Yeah?
It matters because, you know, Tom, I'm familiar with Tom. I've met Tom a number of times. I wouldn't say I'm friends with Tom, but we're friends of Tom. And Tom appreciates how he's developed. Let's not forget, they drafted him. We know about the draft pick. Tom told him this would be the most valuable draft pick that you've ever used on a player. But, man, at Michigan gave up on him. They had another. They had Henson, his baseball player. He made a promise to him. Man, they benched Tom Brady. So now you come to New England. Drew Bledsoe, local hero, he gets hurt. Tom Brady is put in by who? Bill Belichick.
Bill Belichick kept him on the roster the year before when they had 4 quarterbacks.
I mean, there's no one outside of Tom's family that's believed in Tom more than Bill. And in the meetings that they have, Belichick empowers Brady with the stuff that he says. We see all this other stuff on the outside, but, man, there's a tripod going on in New England, and they're all on the same page, and that is Kraft, Belichick, and Kraft's other son, Tom Brady. All right? They are on the same page. And Belichick is right. Tom has missed other time before. We're just making a bigger deal out of it because it's New England. They've worked out a system, and it works for them.
No, and I'm with you, CC. I think some of the issues that have happened with their relationship are overblown. You saw the ESPN report at the end of last season, and you saw some kind of fractures in the franchise. There was some debates between Alex Guerrero, the trainer, and having him in the building because, you know, Tom Brady needs something a little different than what some of the other guys potentially need. But again, when it comes down to the relationship, I think they'll be fine on the field. They're going into their 19th season together. Tom Brady knows exactly what he needs to do. He knows exactly what's going to be expected of him, and I think he's going to be that extension of Bill Belichick in terms of the football. Now, big picture, what happens with Belichick being the head coach of that franchise for the foreseeable future, maybe that's a little more in question because you know what happened with Josh McDaniels this offseason. But in terms of the football this year, I think the New England Patriots will be fine. Bill Belichick and Tom Brady, their relationship in terms of being able to get the football taken care of will be okay.
Because big picture doesn't matter this year. Who knows how many more years Tom Brady has left. We don't know how many more years Bill Belichick has left. We don't know how many years Gronk has left. This is a team that's getting older, this core group. So the big picture doesn't matter nearly as much as getting through training camp, getting through preseason, the next thing that's right in front of you. Am I right?
No, you're absolutely right. And you saw yesterday the reports coming out of Foxborough where Bill Belichick was yelling at Tom Brady in the offense and made them do a down and back on the field. So it's business as usual in terms of how they're trying to operate. And when you look at the landscape of the AFC, you're talking about playing spades, 3 and a possible. There are really only 3 good teams
Right.
in the AFC.
Absolutely
You're
right.
talking about the Patriots, the Pittsburgh Steelers, and the Jacksonville Jaguars.
Right.
Maybe
With the
there's
possible being the Texans.
Yeah, there's a dark horse in there, but I mean,
Chiefs. Yeah, exactly.
going
right.
to the Super Bowl, I'm not
It's so
worried.
different than the NFC landscape. We talked about the Niners earlier, and we said, hey, they're being called Super Bowl contender. There's 8 or 9 teams in their own conference that look better than them right now. So the AFC is very different. Here's the question I have for both of you, though, because you said it is very important. Tell me how things are different for this year if these two guys hated each other. If Brady and Belichick couldn't stand each other, if the reality is ever since Brady went in that room and reportedly said, I want you to trade Jimmy Garoppolo, that Belichick just had a seething anger towards him. And ever since Belichick benched Malcolm Butler, that Brady had a seething anger towards him. How different is that for them this year? Like, is it different? That's why I didn't know how important the relationship is at this point. He's not benching him. He's their only quarterback. He's their only coach. So how different is it if they don't like each other?
I just think it's almost impossible to do the type of work that they've done together and them not love each other.
You know
Or
what,
maybe they
CC?
don't
And
have
you're right.
to.
They probably love each other, but there are times where they don't like each other, like any relationship, right? So how do you get past that? Ultimately, you look at the goal that they have in common, which is trying to win at the highest level. I think they put aside their differences because both of them are top competitors.
And they need each other.
And they need each
Yes.
other. So
Yes.
above all else, they would be willing to sacrifice
Yes.
in order to try to win another
But
championship.
that's the point. We've always sacrificed in order to put the team ahead, in order to win at the highest level. And the reason I bring up, granted, a somewhat extreme scenario, is I think both of them have reason to think, man, for the first time last year, the other person did something that didn't put winning first. Brady, us trading Jimmy Garoppolo for a future pick didn't help us win that year. Us benching Malcolm Butler for the Super Bowl with no explanation didn't help us win that year. So each of them, for the first time in my eyes in their career, have a reason for a little mistrust for the other person. Now, I think because they're both professionals, they could still go on to be 13-3 and it not matter. Like, that's why I was surprised to hear you say, oh, it really matters how much of a good of a relationship they have. Because at this point in their career, I just wonder if the relationship could have been almost autopiloted. They both have a job to do. They're both going to do that job.
This is the thing that I don't think the general public understand. Tom Brady shows up at work and believes that he can get better. You guys are, well, that's impossible. Bill Belichick coaches in a way, and he presents information in a way. I don't care what level of education you're at, you're still going to learn things. And I'm going to tell you what Tom Brady loves. He doesn't have the same dilemmas that a lot of these other quarterbacks have around the league. Managing the roster. Will guys be here on time? Will they have discipline? Brady has that luxury. Now, we can't pass it. That's a responsibility he don't have in New Orleans. I mean, he doesn't have what Drew Brees has in New Orleans. Mm-hmm. He doesn't have what Matty Ice has in Atlanta. Certain things he's got to worry about, how they're going to do things. So it's a luxury. And I know Tom Brady, he's a learned man. Bill Belichick's the only one who can really challenge him from the learning standpoint as far as football on a daily basis. So I believe that there's a grind there, a grind for perfection, that Brady enjoys that relationship that they have.
And they're going to have some challenges. They've got to overcome some losses from this offseason. You lost Brandon Cooks and you lost Nate Solder. Now they drafted Isaiah Wynn and they got Sony Michel as well. So those pieces will help. But ultimately, how are Tom Brady and Bill Belichick going to integrate those new moving parts to that system and get them up to speed? Because the expectations in Foxborough are always the same each and every year. We're trying to compete for a championship. I think the working relationship between Bill Belichick and Tom Brady will be fine. Long term, of course, that remains to be seen. But this year, I think they'll be back to business. It's going to be what we're accustomed to seeing from the New England Patriots.
I want to ask you a question because we started this show at the start of the NFL season. You had questions about Tom Brady and what he was able to do, and thus had questions about the Patriots.
Yep.
And having seen what you saw last year, regardless of their relationship, do you still have questions going? Are there similar questions, getting new guys involved, where Brady
listen,
is?
I've done almost a 180 on this. The one part of the Patriots that I'm not concerned about is their quarterback. I was really concerned about a 40-year-old quarterback when I had seen how he played at the end of at the season before, when I had seen how he played in the playoffs leading up to the third quarter of the Super Bowl, that I thought we were seeing the back end of Brady. Now, I'm like, okay, Brady's going to be great again. He won the damn league MVP, but What's their left tackle situation going to be like? Nate Solder's gone. Who's going to be catching balls? That defense looked bad all year long. Like, those are my levels of concern.
I think that defense will be a little bit better, though. They made the trade, got Danny Shelton in there. He's going to help Malcolm
They
Brown
did lose
stop
their
the
D
run.
coordinator.
They lost their defensive coordinator, so that's something that you have to consider. But Bill Belichick, he's a defensive guy. They'll figure the X's and O's out on that part. Personnel-wise, I think they improved. They got the draft pick out of Florida that's going to play safety corner. So they've infused this roster with some young talent, and they've just got to get those guys up to speed. But that's why you have the OTAs, the mini camp, and then moving forward to the training camp. They'll be in a good position. I just think the relationship, the issues that they've had in the past, I think we're overselling that a little bit. I don't think it'll impact the football this year nearly as much as everybody's making it out.
Back here, first things first, former NBA All-Star Kenyon Martin is back with us. Kenyon, thanks for being with us. Much appreciated. Let's fast forward to year 15 in the NBA. The King, as his disciples call him, is in the midst of arguably his best season and postseason ever.
Jenna, what do people call him?
They call him the King. Did I get that better?
Yeah.
Okay, thank you. He played all 82 games and nearly every minute of every playoff game. Yet the video you're watching here, the one that surfaced of him reacting to having a timeout following J.R. Smith's Game 1 blunder, has critics being, I'd call it critical. Why didn't he pick up his teammates? Why didn't he rally them before overtime? Here's LeBron.
Me? Me being criticized? No. You saying I got criticized for something, right? No, I don't believe that. Not me. I don't care. I don't care at all. I mean, we're in the NBA Finals. I mean, how much more picking up teammates you want me to do? We're in the NBA Finals to compete for a championship.
All right, Kenyon, let's break down that moment there between regulation and overtime when he's sitting in the huddle. And you saw him clearly, some would call it having a human moment, getting frustrated. I mean, he kept it in for a long time. Do you think he deserves criticism for how he reacted?
Criticism, it comes with it.
With
that
being the
situation,
greatest player in
yeah, definitely. Mrs. Big expected, especially the way people treat him. He gets judged by different criteria.
Yeah.
But you can't act that way. Like, you act like a baby, basically. You act like a toddler. Like, okay, timeout wasn't called. George Hill missed a free throw. JR dribbled the clock out. You can't get any of it back. It's over. You can't get it back. You can't sit there with your
You ain't gonna give me a human moment, bruh?
And that situation, okay, digest it. Listen, it's quick. You got 2 minutes, 3 minutes in between.
You got to keep playing.
You got to, listen, he's a pro.
You got to be bigger than the moment.
Have you dropped a touchdown pass before? Not many, but you didn't.
Not none I can remember.
But you didn't.
Some other guy got in my body a couple times and his hands were suspect.
You'd be like, got to get that one.
Yes.
And you come right back to it.
Yes.
Right?
Yes.
Same situation.
But if I'm wide open and you miss me too, I yell at the quarterback, man, you got to hit me.
And you throw it right back to you, what you going to do?
I gotta do my job.
You're going to do your job, right?
Yes.
He got to do his job.
But
he got to get back. You got to get back, though.
That means he has to play in overtime. And if people want to criticize LeBron for not hitting more shots in overtime, fine.
Been engaged, though.
You thought he wasn't engaged in overtime?
How can you be from that?
I'm talking about on the court.
It was over from when he sat back and did this. It was over.
But is it not the coach's job to get the team, including LeBron, back into it?
That's on each individual guy. T. Lue can say whatever he wants to over there, but them 5 minutes is on the guys.
Kmart, tell me though. Now, hey, I've been watching you a long time now.
Yeah.
Now you didn't come up on the highlights for good and for bad.
Of course.
Now we 35,000 feet away from it. Now we all done reacted.
Of course.
You still saying
he's human.
LeBron got to be.
I get that he's human. I'm giving him that human moment.
Okay.
I'm giving him that. Okay, it happened.
So you're giving him 30 seconds of that.
You got to get back. We got a game. We're game one in the finals, like he said. It's game one in the finals. We're competing for a championship.
But maybe I need someone on the team just like you.
But he ain't got nobody else over there on the roster like that. He knows that already. He knows that.
So if I have a bad moment, I don't have no one. I don't have no Nick or Jenna to kind of bail me out, to speak in my ear. Hey, Chris, now you got to do better. He don't have that. So the King don't have what typically everyone else does have.
When you're in
either someone
everybody
on the bench,
leans on him.
But Nick is saying it should come from Ty Lue.
Okay.
Nick's saying that guy should be Ty
What
Lue.
else is my pal
What is Ty
Damon
Lue gonna
Jones
do?
there for?
Damon stood up. Him and Posey stood up.
So
and
that's
said
supposed to have been the
something behind
whole
bench.
reason that Kendrick Perkins is there. For morale of ear or whatever, whoever it is can be that guy. But it's on LeBron to get back and lead those guys.
Listen, man.
In that situation.
I obviously have not been in this situation, and while you haven't been in this precise one, you've been in ones close to it.
Yeah,
You've been in devastating moments.
Yeah.
You've been in big time
Good and
situations. You've
bad.
been in NBA Finals.
Good and bad.
So I can't put myself in that specific situation. But what I do know is this. It's not only that LeBron knows what this means for him means something different than what it means to everyone else on his team. Yeah. It's not only that he has literally, by any statistical measure, carried that team in the postseason more than one player ever has going to the finals, but it's also that he knows, man, this might have been the greatest game I ever played. And it might end like this. LeBron might be a superhuman athlete.
Yeah.
It takes a superhuman, almost inhuman psychology to get over that devastation that quick.
Kenyon, let's go through these sequence of events.
Yeah.
All right? Let's go through the last 4 or 5 plays
the
of the game.
essentially break the rules in reviewing the play.
Of course, that's horrible.
And LeBron
It started there.
LeBron thinks the game is over with the correct call that they make. They break the rules to review it. All right, how does LeBron respond there? Goes down the other court, other end gets a layup.
Yeah.
Next play down, Kevin Love fouls Steph Curry gives him an and one, so now they're trailing. That's the second major mistake. Next time down, LeBron still trusts his teammates.
Yeah.
I could go for 50. Nope, I'm going to get George Hill for a layup.
Yeah.
George Hill misses the second free throw. That's the third major mistake.
Okay.
And then JR forgets the damn score. Those 4 things
Wait a second.
happen.
Five, Nick. Because not only did JR forget, his natural instinct, even if he was going to dribble it out, I got the rebound dribbling out. You know who was sitting right there? Give it to the King.
All right.
Well,
That's 5. So LeBron potentially was robbed of his iconic moment, which now, if you put that moment with the block.
So guess what? You still got 5 minutes to go play.
So listen,
When all that happened, all that went against him up to that point, guess what? The game wasn't over.
Right.
Right.
You still got 5 minutes to go play. And he checked out.
See, I don't think he checked out
At that moment
in the
when
game.
he sat back and folded his arms, while T. Lue is talking, drawing up a play, put your head down.
So you don't have as much of an issue with him having the human moment. You
No.
needed him to re-engage.
Yes.
And he never
He's human.
re-engaged.
I'm not
You
taking
did
that
not
from
see
him. He's human.
re-engage. Okay.
It's inevitable in that moment for you to feel all kind of emotions. Woosah.
And then move on.
Let's go.
And then move on.
I would just
finals. I've carried y'all up to this point.
Here's the, and I want to ask you about the JR thing in a second, because you play with JR, and I'm interested in what you have to say about that. I do think people need to recognize that LeBron's been playing professional basketball for 15 years. However, it is his time in high school. He's been playing basketball at a high level for over half of his life, professionally for nearly half of his life.
Yeah.
That 2-minute sequence was, up to this moment, the most devastating 2-minute sequence of basketball he's ever played. He said it, man. Because he's never lost a Game 7 of a finals. They've never lost a finals in the final seconds. Like, you think about LeBron's bad moments, those are games, like he's had a devastating series by his own doing, what happened in the Dallas series in 2011. The Magic series in 2009 where he averaged 38, 9, and 9. Those weren't last-second losses. This was, for a guy who's prided himself on his totality of his career, the most devastating professional 2 minutes he's ever experienced. Okay. And we are allotting him 30 seconds. We're allotting him 30. Okay.
Because you the king.
All right, but that to me is enough.
Like, when you self-proclaim you the king, guess what? People expect you to bounce back, short time, and to lead your team like you've been doing.
So,
all right.
Go ahead.
I was just going to say, I want to go back to before we go, the JR stuff. You played with J.R. Smith for, what, 7 years or so?
Knicks, Nuggets,
good period of time. You know him, you know his thought process.
7 years with JR is like 14.
Dog years.
Dog years.
Dog years.
What happened? What do you think happened there? Talk us through it.
Just a JR moment. A JR moment, not knowing time and score situation. Not surprised.
It's a lot of things there, the time, score, and the situation.
It's a whole lot, but you engage. Like, for me, I don't know one player that doesn't look up at the score after a free throw in that situation. You know, you're on the line, you don't have to dissect it. You ain't got to get out pen, pad, okay, time, score. But you mental note, okay, 107, 107.
Just know
But
it.
why would you go in, like, if you thought you was up that way, like, why would you go in for the rebound that way? You know what I'm saying?
But knowing JR.
Like,
yeah.
So just think about the whole sequence. You went in there like you. But then too, like, that's his moment that everybody's putting the blame on him, all the memes and everything else. But he's not the only person that could have called timeout.
No doubt.
That's
the bench could have called timeout.
Anybody on the court, the bench, and like somebody.
LeBron, when he didn't get the ball from JR,
should have called timeout.
Well, he was signaling late, but JR threw the ball to the corner.
He was head down, like going into his curly kneel thing, his Bob Cousy thing.
This is the thing and I'm going to give LeBron, because I know, man, under the gun, man, I have reacted. I have done some ugly things. I have said things to teammates.
Likewise.
I have said things to personnel, to coaches and everything that afterwards I was like, I wish I hadn't have done it. But I know in real time, I did those things. So I reacted in a negative way. So I can't expect LeBron to act any different than myself. But I'm just telling you, man, when something like this happened, and especially how much LeBron has put on the line for JR.
Yes.
Now, this is what I'm going to tell you. Because it was JR.
I'm with you.
It hurt him even more because I vouched for you. Didn't nobody want you? The trade was what, Nick?
JR was thrown in.
We're going to throw in JR?
Yeah.
And LeBron laughed and said, I'll take JR.
Yeah, nobody else wants him. I'll make him better.
And you have seen what LeBron has done with JR. You've seen the transformation. You've seen how
off the court life.
Yes.
Not just basketball, but off the court.
And I would be with you 100%. If this was LeBron's reaction, I said this yesterday, say it again. If this was LeBron's reaction to George Hill missing the free throw, and then, you know what I mean, the Warriors get the rebound, they miss, and LeBron's like that to me would be horrible.
Terrible.
Because that is throwing a teammate under the bus for something that could happen to anyone.
Yeah.
Everybody's missed free throws. I think LeBron was shell-shocked.
He's missed free throws.
That, of course, absolutely. He missed big ones. But I think he was shell-shocked that in this situation, in the NBA Finals, a guy who has forgotten the score in a game before and it cost the Knicks a game, that he did it there. And I still think he knew how to react.
I'm with you. No, all that's fair. All that's he's vouched for the guy, got him paid in Cleveland, brought him back in, believed in him. All that. Like, might have cut him deeper than most have done it. But I get it. But you still got to bounce back, man. You still got to bounce back, and it was still time to go win a game, which I don't like that. His reaction, I just don't think he could have bounced back from it. Like, he put his teammates in a way to where they had to go out and perform basically without him, and overtime showed that. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
Golden State ran away with it in overtime.